Is this working? Yes? Great. Guys, welcome to the first ever episode of Rail Esports, Rail News. I don't know yet what I want to call it, but let's go with something like that. You guys let me know in the comments below if you have any ideas. The Winter Royale event is underway. Now, the finals for the Europeans just finished, and to me, this is the most exciting event so far for Fortnite. Aside from, of course, all the big ones like TwitchCon that happened that were, kind of crazy with all the money involved and all the players. But the great thing about this event, of course, is that we had a lot of new names coming in that we'd never seen before. You had definitely some big names like the Atlantis players, like Mitro that was in there, finished third. You had Ghost Issa that was in here that played super well. Again, controller player, fantastic. He really showed up, especially in the semifinals. He played super well. Also, you had Ghost Camo in here, another controller player from the Ghost team. And really, that's incredible that we had like all these players on controller. Not only that, but we had players that we had never seen before that came out on top. Like the winner of the event for the Europeans, Lestream Skype. Personally, had never heard of this guy before. Maybe you guys have, but I've been following the scene quite a bit, and I had never seen this guy's name before, so I'm guessing that he's probably someone that's been playing well before, but that just kind of his biggest tournament so far, so good for him. And again, all in the top 10. I'll put it on the screen. There's definitely names that you've never seen here before. So good for these guys, good for showing up, and good for, kind of getting their name out there. Maybe potentially some of these guys are going to get picked up by organizations. And I think that's the greatest thing about an event like the Winter Royale. The fact that it's an open qualifier, the fact that anybody can play really means that if you do perform, if you do show up, then you get a chance to have your name out there and get so many people to see, who you are, and then get some people calling you and maybe say, hey, you want to join our organization? Maybe get some other players that are pros, try to reach out to you for maybe duo tournaments in the future. So it really opens up a lot of opportunities for these people if they do kind of show up. Now, again, there's this funny thing about this tournament is that, of course, there were certain rules to make sure that you could qualify. So I think 16 years of age was the minimum. There was also other stuff that they didn't really say what it was. It could have been if you were bad before or some other stuff that made it so that you couldn't qualify. And I was expecting maybe, 5, 10 players to get disqualified, but there's over 30 players, like 28 players in the European scene that did get disqualified from the tournament. So I'll put the list up on the screen as well. So that is very interesting, which to me feels like either there's a bunch of 15-year-old kids that are really, really good at Fortnite, or there's also some other sort of rule that Epic didn't tell us about that made so people got disqualified. Again, I'm very much guessing that if you got some sort of ban before, that means that you can participate, or it could really just be that there's a lot of good, young players out there. So we'll see. I mean, some players that got disqualified, we'll be seeing if we can talk to them, see why they got disqualified. I'm sure we're going to see that on Reddit pop up. The NA list has not been sent out yet as of making this video, so we don't know exactly who is qualified, who is disqualified yet for the NA scene. Now, moving on from this, from the qualifiers and from that, what was so great about this event was also the playstyle and also the way that the actual mode plays out. So they added a few things, right? The healing on kills is really, really crazy good and also made for some really nice clips on Reddit, some of the best that I've ever seen. It really feels like it made players play a lot more aggressively. And I've heard from some pro players say that, the difference here is before, for example, you had 100 HP, no shields, you would try to run away from a fight. But here, it feels like the opposite. When you don't have shields, it almost feels like you're incentivized to go for a kill to get that 50 shields and actually play more aggressive than you usually would. So it really feels like it turns the table completely, especially late game. You got 30 HP, and instead of kind of hiding and, boxing yourself in, you are doing your best to try to kill someone, like to poke someone to get that 50 HP if you get lucky. We saw a lot of different plays and different, loadouts that we didn't see before as well, especially the deagles become probably the main difference between this tournament and the ones that we saw before. The deagle did get buffed. It does 150 damage to structures now, which means that it's an incredibly good weapon to kill people that are boxed in. You one-shot that wall, you replace for your own, and then you get to, get a kill. It really, really is good for late game. It has that minimum 50 damage on hits now as well. Also 156 damage headshot, which is really, really strong. And it does really show. We've seen so many players use it instead of an SMG in this tournament. So if you're someone that wants to participate in these future tournaments, which are very, very likely to come soon, I say deagle is something that you should try to practice right now. Get into your inventory, get used to having it into your inventory. And it's really working well because you could just drop Deagle Shotgun, and it's a great combination. Does a lot of damage, and also again for the other the other uses that we just mentioned, it's a great weapon. Explosives are most definitely something that you should keep an eye out and really think about getting into your inventory. I personally have never been a big fan of RPGs, but because there's such a big limit on mats now, there's only 1,500 mats for each players. It really happens a lot more than before that people run out of mats in the late game, especially in the late circles. People run out of mats literally, and they're just running chicken. So you can just shoot them with RPG, and they can't box themselves in, they can't protect themselves, and it makes for a lot easier kills. When you have 3,000 mats, it is a lot easier to just, kind of block the RPG every time. And, the person with an RPG is just going to run out of shots eventually. But now, again, I've seen plays and some people won the some actual games in the tournament from just having an RPG and people, having no mats and just killing them in the late game. I'm not a big fan of RPGs, not a big fan of explosives, but look, if you're going to play the meta, that's definitely something that you should try to incorporate. Also, grapplers. Any sort of mobility item is going to be a huge help for you in this meta. We've seen so many players say that, but I mean, it's kind of obvious. There's two reasons for that. Number one, the late game circles were changed a few patches ago where the distance between each circle is further than before. And not only that, the mats are capped at 1,500, which means that you can't just spam walls. You can't just spam your mats all the way to the second zone when you're trying to rotate. If you do that, you're going to run out of mats very quickly. So having any sort of item, any sort of utility that can get you to that second zone without spamming mats is going to be absolutely fantastic. Again, the grappler, the Rift to Go, jump pads. We even see people get quad crashers in their boxes and trying to keep the quad crashers to kind of use it to launch in the air and try to rotate. A lot more risky of a utility, but still, that's kind of a creative way to do that. For the tournament, that's definitely the biggest things I've seen. The Deagle coming out really, really strong. The fact that there's no more heal loss, like really, it's all about fighting in the late game, and people that get those picks really seem to come out on top. We've seen a lot more aggressive plays. Now, that could just be because it's the Europeans. They usually play more aggressive than NA players. I'm excited to see the NA finals. They're happening on the 11th, I think. So it's the middle of the week, kind of weird, but happening in the middle of the week. I'm excited to see if the NA players also play as aggressive as the Europeans. I'm guessing that it's going to be not as aggressive, but still more aggressive than what we're used to from NA players. Also, the actual like pro players in NA play passive, but there's a bunch of new names out there in that list that we've never seen before. So it could really change the way that the pro scene plays when these new names come in, and maybe they completely play more aggressive, and then the pros that are currently on the scene, they have to adapt. Think of Aiden. Aiden coming in and just W-keying everybody when this summer in the skirmishes and TwitchCon and all that. He really changed the way that people play the game, because if you're playing very passive and Aiden just comes and W-keys you, you're going to get killed. So, people might have to adapt their playstyle. If very aggressive players become good and actually start winning these tournaments and actually start, getting those points, maybe some of the more passive players will have to adapt, and we'll see how that really works out. I'm very excited to see how that works out. That's about it. You know what? Looking in the future, I'm going to end the video on this. I'm really excited to be looking at what's happening with the NA finals happening on again, the 11th. I will be keeping you guys updated. I'll be looking at, some other clips. I'll be playing myself in the in-game Scavenger Cup today on Sunday. There's the duos, and I'm guessing that the duos tournament is going to be somewhere in the next few weeks. With $100 million that Epic is basically said that they would put on the prize pools for 2018, 2019, I'm guessing that these like $1 million tournaments, like small $1 million tournaments, if we can call them small, are going to be very common. I mean, they have so much money to be put on that on the prize pools that a little $1 million tournament every few weeks is definitely something they could do for open qualifiers, maybe to scout some talents. And then they could have, of course, these big events, these big LAN events where there's a lot more money to be won. But I think that these small $1 million tournaments for open qualifiers are super nice, super exciting. And you guys should definitely keep an eye out on Twitch, on this channel, to get some more news, to get some more help on, maybe the new strategies that are coming up to qualify for these tournaments. I'll be looking out. I'll be checking out what pros do, maybe give you guys some insight on that, and also keep you guys updated on what's going on in the tournaments. So please do subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this type of content. I will be making some more. I will also make some videos of Fortnite, of course, me playing and some other fun stuff on here. Put the notifications on if you'd like to be the first to get the content. And that's it. Love you guys. See you soon.